Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera, where it's a very chilly morning here in Tokyo. It's February the 1st. I'm at the Tokyo Midtown Shopping and I guess commercial center here across from Roppongi, and you can tell it's cold because I'm wearing gloves. I don't think I've worn gloves while making a video before, but kind of necessary this morning. I apologize for it taking so long for me to post a new video. January was very busy. We had many things to do. We had the New Year's holiday, a lot of things to get caught up on, and of course lots of work and stuff like that. But finally, I decided I really have to get a video put up despite how cold it is outside, so here I am. And I decided to do a video about a really interesting camera, and one which I received a lot of requests about, and that is the Yashica Mat 124G. Which is a twin lens reflex camera, otherwise known as a TLR camera, and quite highly regarded for its quality and the quality of the images which it can capture. Now, Yashica began producing twin lens reflex cameras in the early 1950s. Their very first camera was called a Pigeon Flex, and it was made by the Yashica Mat optical company. That's what Yashica was formerly known as, and they were a maker of microscopes and simple optical medical equipment. The Pigeon Flex was then changed to the Yashica Flex. It was the identical camera, they just changed the nameplate on it. And I guess people weren't interested in a camera with the word pigeon in the title. And apparently people weren't so interested in the word Yashica either, so Yashica again changed the name to Yashica. And the third variation of this identical camera was called the Yashica Flex. And the Yashica Flex evolved over the years to more sophisticated designs with improved lenses, improved focusing system, built-in light meters, and a lot of other features. Just as technology improved, so did the cameras. Yashica was probably, I believe they were, the largest manufacturer of twin lens reflex cameras. They certainly were, because you still find lots of them here, the largest manufacturer of these cameras in Japan. Many of them were made, some better than others, but the pinnacle of the Yashica TLR camera is of course the 124G, which was the last one they produced. Now, compared to the original Yashica Flex of the early 50s, or the Pigeon Flex, this is a much more advanced camera, a much more capable camera, and is pretty much superior in every way, including the price. These tend to be a little bit expensive nowadays compared to other Yashica cameras. So the Yashica 124G, the G denotes gold, and that's why the G is written in gold in this camera. It was introduced back in 1970, a long time ago, and that's back when the Electro 35 series was still Yashica's most popular seller. And the gold, G on the camera denoted the gold-plated electrical contacts inside the camera, which was a little bit of marketing and a little bit of actual real improvement in camera technology. The gold-plated contacts resisted corrosion and made the cameras more reliable, and they certainly are more reliable than the earlier cameras which didn't have the gold-plated contacts. In the case of the 124G, it's kind of superfluous because this is a manual camera. All the controls are manual, so the need for electrical contacts is not so necessary. And the only electronics this camera has is the light meter, and the light meter actually has a mechanical coupling to the aperture and shutter speed rings, so the G is kind of pointless in this camera, but it does make it look cool. It has a gold Y on the top and the gold G on the front, and gold and black always go together quite well. So the only thing which isn't black on this camera are, of course, the rings around the taking and viewing lens, and this is because this camera is, of course, made to accept things like focusing hoods and close-up lenses and such like that. And this, the chrome plating on here resists scratches and wear better than if they were just to paint it black like the rest of the camera. So let's go ahead and take a look at the features, controls, and functions of the Yashica Mat 124G. We'll start with the top like I usually do. And the first thing we'll see up here is the window for the exposure meter. And you have a couple of things here. You have a kind of yellow colored indicator which moves left and right as you adjust the shutter and aperture, and then you have a light meter, a needle, and what you want to do is line up the meter needle with the indicator here, and when these are lined up, when you have the camera pointed at what you're going to take a photograph of, it means you have the exposure setting set correctly. There's a smaller window here which says ASA underneath, and that shows the film speed setting. So when you load film in the camera, you take a note of what speed the film is, and you adjust this dial here on the right side so the numbers in the top match the film that you have loaded in the camera. It's quite simple and can't really go wrong with it. Here we have the focusing hood, just like all the other TLR cameras. To turn on the light meter, you simply pop open the hood like so, and you should see the light meter needle move if the light meter is working and the battery is good. Inside the viewfinder, we have the typical focusing screen with a set of horizontal and vertical lines, which are arranged in what are like in other cameras, the rule of thirds system, which kind of help you compose photographs following this system. This camera uses a focusing glass or ground glass plus a Fresnel lens underneath, which brightens up what you're looking at and makes it easier to precisely focus and gives you a better view of your subject. And of course we have a pop-up focusing loop, and we have a sports finder. So pretty much like other TLR cameras. On the front of the camera, on the very top here, we have the indicator, which allows you to see what aperture and shutter speed you have selected. And as I said, as you move the aperture and shutter speed rings, you will see the indicator in the top move. Here we have the orifice for the light meter cell. This camera uses a CDS light meter, which is battery powered, and the battery chamber is here. This camera uses the old, excuse me while I cough a moment. Sorry about that. Uses the MR9 1.3 volt battery, but you can use a PX625 battery. The battery or the light meter accuracy may be affected by which battery you have. You can get a diode adapter which allows you to use an LR44 battery and will give you the correct 1.35 volt voltage, or you can use a wine cell battery. These are available on eBay and Amazon and such like that, and those are 1.3 volt batteries and they don't require adapters. We have the same pins here which you pull up to remove and put in the film and take up spool. We have the same focusing knob here that you find on other Yashica cameras going back over the years. We have depth of field scale and the focusing scale, which is arranged in both meters and feet. And something which we have on most Yashica Flex cameras is a flash shoe, and this camera has a PC sync socket like many of the Yashica Flex cameras, and you can use a modern flash on this camera if you have a PC sync adapter, and just follow the directions on the flash if you want to use it. Here we have a switch mode between the different flash modes, M and X settings, and of course here we have this is the ring for adjusting the shutter speed, and we have a full range of shutter speeds from B all the way up to 1/500th of a second. And it's interesting to see that the light meter in this camera is working quite well. And of course on this side we have the aperture ring, and on the bottom here we have the shutter release button, and we have a lock lever around the side to prevent it from being accidentally discharged if you have charged the shutter and you're putting away the camera and taking a photograph later. On this side here we have the film winding and shutter charging lever. I really like how cool it is. We have a frame counter here and an indicator. This camera will, as I said, accept 120 roll film or 220 roll film. You get 12 exposures on 120 film and 24 exposures on 220 film, though 220 film is kind of hard to find nowadays. When you set the camera to 120 or 220, it will show here on the side which setting you have. And of course here we have the frame counter window, pretty much in the same location as all the other earlier Yashica Flex cameras. On the bottom here we have the ring here, retaining ring, which you use to just turn left and you can open the back of the camera like so. And here you can see the sliding plate here, which you have to move from one place to the other to switch between 120 and 220 film. You have to switch it because of course the roll for 220 film is larger, and if you don't move the backing plate out of the way, it will rub. And of course, here we have the indicator marks showing how to line up the film. So if you're putting film in the camera, you put the take-up spool on the top, you put your film here, you pull the film up over the back, and make sure that you pull it in a way so that the paper backing is facing toward you. 120 roll film can be used either way. Different cameras use different systems. Sometimes the film has to point outward, sometimes inward. On this camera, the film should point inward and you should see the paper backing. You thread the film into the take-up spool and turn the dial, and you keep winding until the arrow on the paper backing lines up with the red mark here, and then you simply close the camera like so, and then wind until the number 1 shows up here, and the camera should stop winding by itself and you're ready to take a photograph. Now, problems which these cameras sometimes have. The number 1 problem I run across with these cameras is haze in the taking lens, and usually in the rear element. And when you're looking at one of these cameras, always make sure to take a look inside the rear element and make sure that there's no haze in it. The haze comes from the lubrication contaminating the lens coating on the inside, and sometimes it can be cleaned out and sometimes it can't. And when it can't be cleaned out, that means that it's kind of eaten into the coating and hazed the glass. And the only way to get it off is to polish it out, and polishing these lenses, you have to remove the coating, and it's very difficult to do, and it's very easy to scratch or damage the lens. If you come across one of these cameras which has haze in the rear element, I would probably avoid it. If it's just a touch of haze or it's very minor, in my experience this doesn't make a big difference in the quality of the images. Most people won't notice it, though you yourself, you'll probably be aware of it, and it's something which is kind of annoying. So yeah, just try to avoid cameras which have any haze in the lens. Another issue which can happen with these cameras is that these rings here, these feed into gears which turn the aperture and the shutter speed rings, and sometimes these can become disconnected. So you can turn the dials and maybe the numbers are setting up here, but the shutter actually isn't changing speeds and the aperture blades aren't moving. So make sure that when you turn the dial looking through the back or with the camera set to B, that as you're turning the shutter speed dial or the aperture dial, that the aperture blades are actually opening and closing. And also when you're selecting shutter speeds, make sure that they're actually changing from faster to slower. Other than that, this is a wonderful and reliable camera. It was made for 16 years, if you can believe that, all the way up until 1986, and that kind of shows what a popular camera it was. Now, if you want a camera which will give you maybe 95% of the performance of a Rolleiflex camera for 1/5 the cost, or if you're talking about a brand new one, maybe 1/10 the cost, the Yashica Flex 124G is an excellent camera. And this is one of those cameras which has been popular for years and remains popular, and the price seems to be trending upward and upward as time goes by. These aren't getting any cheaper, so they're a good camera if you want to use it, and if you go to resell it, you're not going to lose any money. So which is a rare thing nowadays. So it's a really wonderful tool for taking photographs. These were quite popular here in Japan. They were used, some people, press photographers used them, a lot of hobbyists used them, and these were very popular cameras in schools here which were teaching photography. They were about the best quality you could get for the price, and the most modern TLR camera which was made in Japan. But anyway, that's it for my review of the 124G. I do have a new video coming up next month, or next week. I hope I should find the time to get it ready and edited and uploaded and all that. And it's going to be a review of what is a really cool camera, one which probably most people in America and Europe are familiar with, not so many people here in Japan. And if you want to check out that video, please subscribe or check back. If you like this video, please click the like button. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.